Is a function and the problem of the legal profession. I have written somewhere, and I want to repeat it here, that the greatest enemy of the legal profession is the legal profession itself. And the greatest enemy of justice in Nigeria is also the legal profession itself. As you may have heard, the Honorable President of National Industrial Court, the attitude of lawyers and by extension the attitude of our judicial officers have contributed in no small measure to delay justice in Nigeria when the matter is in court. And I speak that the matter is in court. I'm not talking about the other fundamental factors at the side of the executive when it comes to criminal matters in terms of investigation, in terms of the thoroughness and the compromising nature of some of our security agencies. But when we come to court, take for instance, the Administration of Criminal Justice Act has set out how criminal litigations should be conducted from day to day and so on and so forth. But that law does not implement itself. It requires the cooperation of the judge or the judex and the lawyers to do what the law says it should be done. Like I said somewhere else, when we talked about our electoral justice, there is a provision, for instance, in the Electoral Act that tribunal should grant you opportunity to access electoral materials to either to prosecute or defend your case. When you get that order, you now see the frustrating antics and attitude of lawyers because election petition has a time limit within which to conclude. And so all of these things are happening because Nigeria is about the only country that I know that people breach the law and there are no consequences. That is why some persons will just tell you, Femi, I will slap you, and there's nothing you can do. If you like, go to court. Because they know that when you get to court, you will not get justice. Then there is another aspect that I was sharing with my colleague that we have not even examined. Do you know that it is easier to get judgments in our court and much more difficult to enforce it? Indeed, I will want to see delayed justice from the post-judgments angle because there are many Nigerians who had been...
Let's talk about that. That is frightening.
When you have a judgment against government or government agencies and you want to enforce, you first of all seek the consent of the Attorney General, either of the state or of the federation, before you can execute judgments against government agency. That provision of law is there. Now, opportunity had been there in time past for the judiciary to pronounce that provision dead, but nobody is ready to do so. I only recall sometimes in 1997 or thereabout, when my Lord, the Honorable Justice Ogundere, pronounced the provisions of similar law in Sheriff and Civil Press law of Kano, a military governor of Kano State against Jallo, where his lordship said that execution is part of the compendium of judicial power, and any law that intends to interfere with that execution is unconstitutional. But that was then. But today, some judges still respect that provisions of the law. And the reason is simple.
Is it the judge that tells the beneficiary of his judgment to go seek for the consent of the attorney?
No, when you go to enforce, for instance, there are various ways of enforcing judgment. For instance, you talk about garnishing proceedings. When you trace government money to central bank, for instance, there are thousands and one order made absolute against Central Bank of Nigeria that the Central Bank of Nigeria is not willing to release that money to judgment creditor, despite order absolute in garnishing proceeding. They are fighting the battle as if they are the judgment creditor. Their duty is to release the money. Then, when you talk about physical enforcement, for instance, if you have a judgment against the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, You will require the police to go and pick the vehicle of the president of the Senate or the Speaker of the House of Representatives
Or even a senator.
or if a senator himself, or you have a judgment against Inspector General of Police. So in Nigeria, for instance, because there are no consequences for disobedience, the police, the security agencies, and big men have become law unto themselves. So these are part of the reasons why you have what I call delayed justice. Delayed justice is not only to get judgment from court, but after judgment, what is the fruits of the judgment?
So let's look forward. Is there any way out?
The way out is, one, we must repent, all of us. We must have a change of attitude. In order to climb, once a decision of court, every other person must respect it. One, we must respect our judicial institution. Two, we must allow our judicial institution to be independent. Three, the judicial institution themselves must avoid conduct that will bring them into total disrepute. Because once you give appearance of impropriety as a judex, then nobody will respect you.
And it has to do even with our attitude as individuals and as nation. The lawyers have their blame. And when you talk of the lawyers having their blame, you have what I would describe as proper tutelage, the orientation, the philosophy, the mindset of the lawyers being trained in Nigeria must change. That is one. It is those lawyers that now becomes judges, and the beat goes on. If a lawyer with a wrong mentality who gets appointed to the bench will also continue. That is. Then also, the society. There are certain things that the society does to judges, even to the system. People criticize, oh, this one is bad, this one, but the clerk of court, who has been assigned to do certain duties, who is not doing it, it does incalculable damage to the system, to the administration of justice. There's so many things to Nigeria and Nigerians. We must change our mindset about certain things, including the justice system. Then you talk about the appointment, the process of appointment, which to me is also key. The process of appointment should be made to be more transparent. You see, in the world now, people are so much interested in the justice system because the world is so intertwined. Commercial activities in one country has effect in another country. And that is the reason why you now have different protocols. The UN is interested, setting standards. You have the Lilongwe principles. You have the Latima House principles, all pointing out to one thing, all pointing to what's one thing. And that is the fact that your justice system, the process of appointment, the process of recruitment of your judges must be transparent. You must have certain standards that judges, the people you appoint as judges must have. So if we decide to go by those standards and adhere strictly to them, for God's sake, if you know a person is not fit, why appoint him or her as a judge? That is why in certain countries now, interview for judges on television is what they do. You must appear before the JSC. In some instances, in some countries now, what they do is they don't just thrust you onto the bench of the country, because they know that once you are appointed and you are a liability, you become a liability to the system for long, because judges are not easy to a judge is not easy to remove.
That's the bit we have on the scale today. So many events unraveling themselves, and you can trust that the scale will continue to follow up and get the areas that are of interest to you and to the interest of the development of our law. We'll see you as the days run by. Thank you for being part of today's edition.
Bello Django with the initiative, but there's a swift counter there by Dang Autan Kudawa.
They are sweating it out there. Quite literally, you can see how much beads of sweat. Oh, see the razzmatazz there from Algerin Metakwasara, and I like it.
So much resistance level in him, so much resistance, and I bet you Algerin Metakwasara has a lot to do here today.
Here is Algerin Dogon Ebola taking on Bahagon Dan Sanda. Algerin Dogon Ebola is the one where, and Algerin Dogon Ebola has been killed. Something stylish about them. And Bahagon Dan Sanda is also dramatic about it.
Issues in the sports sector remain one of the most debated among Nigerians due to the passion, followership, government involvement, impact on Nigeria's external image and our national life in the sports parliament. The NTA offers Nigerians deep views on issues with experts in the sports sector, offering in-depth analysis, hindsight, insight and foresight towards elevating Nigerian sports to the zenith on the floor of the sports parliament. Sports Parliament, a unique platform for sports discussions, showing live on the NTA. Keep a date with the parliamentarians.
Your eyes have it. NTE Sports 24, where sports thrive.
There is a lot of fake news and report circulating, especially on social media, on the coronavirus. Do not believe or partake in the spread of these fake reports. If it is not on the official website or news from the Nigerian Center for Disease Control, NCDC, disregard such report. Only together can we beat this virus. Only together can we overcome this pandemic. Follow the instructions and guidelines provided to combat this virus. Most importantly, stay at home. Self-isolate, regardless of your status. The virus doesn't move unless we move. Let us work together to better Nigeria. Together, we can do this.
This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network.
KB Vigilantes killings, President Buhari demands proactive efforts from security agencies.
Senate rejects court order, insists on amending Electoral Act as House rescinds decision on 3 women-related amendment bills.
Federal government says second Niger bridge ready for use this October.
President Muhammadu Buhari has love for the people of the Southeast. Let them come to this bridge, and they will see the kind of impact that it's already making, and it will make when it is commissioned.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, our conversation is on the NATI 2020 oil and gas industry audit reports.
The Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, NAITI, this Monday unveiled in a presentation that is its 2020 audit report. The currency on financial indicators in the oil and gas industry, we dare say it's quite revealing, Kinsley.
That's right, Nadabo. Now, the NATI reports showed that the oil and gas sector contributed 8.16% to the country's GDP in 2020, and that represented a decline of 0.46% when compared to the 8.62% recorded in 2019. Now, these latest financial figures, however, give us an audit of the mining sector's operation, as well as the fiscal allocation and statutory disbursement.
Well, for a sector and industry which dominated the country's export in 2020, contributing about 75%, that's representing 9.44 trillion naira of the total export value of 12.52 trillion. It is worrisome to hear and see further startling figures as indicators of huge indebtedness of companies and other players, just as we see revenues dipped by 40% of the year in review.
Now, 51 oil and gas companies are reported to be owing the Federation to the tune of $3.17 billion. That's the equivalent of 1.32 trillion naira, compared to the company's liabilities of 2.6 trillion naira that they owed in 2019. Now, the report also showed a drop in the number of defaulting companies, however, from 77 as reported by NATI the year earlier, that is to say 2019.
And that's right. The presentation by NATI outlined specific revenue streams that accounted for the liabilities in question, including royalty oil, royalty gas, concession rentals, petroleum profit tax, company income tax, education tax, that is, and then value-added tax and withholding taxes, among others.
Indeed, Nadabu. Now, these latest financial indicators are representations, as it were, cutting across the many parameters and subsectors in the extractive industries. Now, of course, we do get to hear of companies which make payments to government and the reconciliation of those payments through the receipts by government itself. The data on NATI, we'll have to find out in the course of our conversation this morning how much of these transactions have been properly accounted for.
Well, Kinsley, in the words of the NATI boss, and I quote, that is, the courageous public disclosure of companies' liabilities to the Federation by NATI was in line with its national mandate and in fulfillment of its obligation as a member of the Global Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, and not in any way against the companies. So you can see this is a duty to all, by all, that is to all in all ways.
Well, the latest reports, which are the 13th cycle of the NATI agency, indicate, of course, quite clearly that they are in line with the Naity Act 2007 and in fulfillment of Nigeria's obligation to the global EITI, that is the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative. And with the Petroleum Industry Act now in place, unveiling the sector and activities therein is certain to go deeper and clearer, particularly considering the role of the extraction subsector of the economy to our country's development.
Yes, more so that the prompt decision of President Muhammad Buhari to set up a 9-member committee, including Naity, to oversee its implementation will get the competition and investment on a new pedestal for all players in the sector, going forward, that is. And what more, contained in the 2020 Oil and Gas Industry Audit Report as released by Naity on Monday in Abuja. Where and what are the other worries for Naity and indeed industry watchers? August are watching for this.
All right, Honorable, very pertinent questions there. We shall, of course, be interrogating many more aspects of the Naity audit reports as disclosed. On that note, we'd like to welcome you to this edition of Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. My name is Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Yusuf Nadabu Usman, joining Kingsley to welcome you also. Don't forget we have a complimentary segments as usual, and then we are going to serve them to you when the time comes. For now, here is Dennis Adegunloye with the morning news. Good morning, Dennis.
Good morning, Nadabo. Welcome back from your leave. And good morning, Kingsley. Good morning, Nigeria. Here's the morning news. President Muhammadu Buhari has expressed sadness over the brutal murders of several vigilante members in Kebbi State by bandits who ambushed them in the Sakaba Wasagu local government area of the state. The president describes the level of criminality as shocking, while assuring Nigerians that everything will be done to tackle the issue decisively. While extending sympathy to the families of the victims, the president calls on the security forces to be more proactive and redouble their efforts in order to frustrate the operational plans of the terrorists before they even launch attacks. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has approved the appointment of Dr. Gaydom Ferdinand Dumbari as project coordinator for the hydrocarbon pollution remediation project under the Federal Ministry of Environment. Dr. Gaydom holds a Doctor of Philosophy degree in environmental geology with over 20 years' experience in the conduct of impact assessments and baseline studies of brownfields and greenfields. He is also an expert in remediation project management and has consulted with the United Nations Environment Programme, UNEP, on the environmental impact assessment of Ogoni land. Dr. Gaydom is a member of the Nigerian Mining and Geosciences Society and a chartered environmental geologist. A statement issued by the Director of Press, Federal Ministry of Environment, Shazia El Mohammed, says the appointment is for 4 years with immediate effect. Now, more Nigerians continue to celebrate Vice President Yemi Osinbajo as he turns 65. Ogun State Governor Dapo Abiodun and the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, were among those who paid a visit to the Vice President's office to felicitate with him.
He's a phenomenon that's worth emulating. He's one that we Yorubas refer to people of his life as an omoluabi. And those of us that are younger than him also want to take those kind of steps that will allow us to be referred to as an omoluabi.
The president described him as a true and loyal partner in this enterprise of running this nation. And I believe so much in that he has done very well and he has done incredibly well.
The Constitution confers on the legislature the right to make and amend laws, and therefore court orders cannot prevent it from carrying out this constitutional function. This is coming from the Senate as it responds to the ruling of the Federal High Court restraining the National Assembly from amending the new Electoral Act 2022.
And I mean separation and exercise of powers. The judiciary, under no circumstance, can stop the legislature, the National Assembly, from performing its legislative duties.
I think the argument you have raised is valid, but this one will present in court to discharge that order. We cannot sit and appeal on a matter that's already been given an order in court.
If the judiciary will simply say we are not to consider this and that, and we obey those kind of rulings, that's anarchy.
Meanwhile, the House of Representatives has rescinded its decision on 3 gender-related bills, which were among those rejected during voting on the Constitution Amendment bills. The 35% affirmative action, citizenship and indigenship bills have now been recommitted for reconsideration.
There are issues arising therefrom, and the House, in its wisdom, has decided to take a course of action for the good of the country.
Ebonyi State Governor David Umahi says he will appeal the judgments of the Federal High Court, Abuja, that sacked him and his deputy from office over their defections from the People's Democratic Party, PDP, to the ruling All Progressives Congress, APC.
I'm still the governor of Ebonyi State, and he has no powers to remove me. But let me say to the nation that there is a need to look at the integrity of our judiciary, because I already have, a judgment in my favor, and he has no powers to remove this me that was brought by the hands of God.
In the meantime, Senator Ademola Adeleke is declared winner of the Osun PDP governorship primary election held at the Osogbo Township Stadium. However, a parallel primary election by a faction of the party also took place in the state capital.
No victor, no vanquished. We are all winners. Let's go for PDP.
The Nigerian embassy in Bucharest, Romania, says Nigerian students from Ukraine who wish to remain in Romania for a while can contact the embassy for accommodation at either the University of Bucharest or Babes Bolyai University. Statements by the embassy confirm that accommodation is available at Cluj, Napoca and Bucharest. Interested students are advised to contact these numbers: 40749 335 927 or 40786 091 964. The federal government says the second Niger Bridge will be ready for use in October this year. Minister of Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, disclosed this when Chief of Staff to the President, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, and the Minister of Labour and Employment, Dr. Chris Ngige, visited the site in Anambra State to ascertain the level of work done so far.
President Muhammadu Buhari has love for the people of the Southeast. Let them come to this bridge, and they will see the kind of impact that it's already making, and it will make when it is commissioned.
They will complete the eastbound link, I think, on the 15th of March, and the westbound link on the 2nd of April. So plus or minus a few T's to cross and I's to dot, this project will be completed this year.
Well, those are the news highlights for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues after this break with Nadabu and Kingsley. Good morning.
You won't go shake your body. Instead, they make it calm down. In the farm, say sabi. You want to grow 6 packs in a day. I beg you not to pass me your power. You want to show yourself, oh.
Whatever your size, find it with the new Airtel data plans. Dial *141# now to get the plan that suits you. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Everybody knows the secret to good cooking is that special ingredient. The mothers know it. But does this new generation know it? Let's find out. Mothers, daughters, are you ready? Yeah! Let the cooking begin.
Erisco tomato paste. Now we get home, now we get love, now we get children. We spice the world with a meal so great and so healthy. You know we've got your back. Oh, with Erisco, Rigico, Nagico.
Ladies and gentlemen, food is ready.
Food of love. Tomato paste. Good food for the body. Yum yum.
Erisco Rigico and Nagico tomato paste is made by Erisco Foods Limited, feeding Africans with healthy foods.
Finally, the hero of Nigeria's democracy has arrived. He shall usher us into a new phase of development, peace, and prosperity. He is the father of the new Nigeria, His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR. Welcome to another season of giving Nigerians hope yet again. We are sure of a great future for both ourselves and generations yet unborn. We look forward to your leading us as a nation into our manifest destiny. Though the challenges against us as a people are many, we know that your leadership shall set us on the right path to our greatness. A new dawn beckons on us all, and having you as our president is a precursor to this. Thank you for believing in Nigeria. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
To every politician, as the campaigns gain momentum and passions begin to rise, remember, the errors of your opponents do not make you a success. Do not run down your opponent and inflame passions to violence between and among your supporters. What counts is what you plan to do for the electorate and how you intend to relieve the sufferings and bring succor. Nigeria is in dire need of patriotic leaders at all levels. Leaders who will make national development their priority. Concentrate on telling the electorate what you intend to do when you get into office. Focus on making your vision clear to the electorate. Don't engage in verbal abuses, fake news, or speeches. Keep dealing with issues that will bring progress. You win the hearts and minds of the people by being above board, by being civil, patriotic, and showing empathy. Let's join hands to make the 2023 elections peaceful. A message from the National Orientation Agency. Contemporary times require practical skills to remain competitive and relevant in your organization. Therefore, take advantage of NTA TV College Short Proficiency courses to sharpen your professional skills. Administrative Principles, Processes and Practices. Date 14th March to 8th April 2022. 4 weeks. Modern Trends in Broadcast Media Marketing. Date 14th March to 8th April 2022. 4 weeks. Basic Broadcast Accounting and Auditing. Date 4th April to 15th April 2022. 2 weeks. Audio Engineering Operations and Maintenance. Date 18th April to 29th April 2022. 2 weeks. The course fee for the 4-week course is 180,000 Naira and the course fee for the 2-week course is 150,000 Naira only. Accommodation inclusive. The venue for all courses is the serene and secure environment of NTA TV College near Old Government House, Rayfield, Jos. For more enquiries, please call 0803-314-4383 or 0806-980-9807. NTA TV College, Jos. Training you to be the best you want to be.
You clean your teeth every morning, but that fresh breath feeling just doesn't last. The answer? Easy. You keep your teeth strong and healthy and give your mouth long-lasting fresh breath with new Oral-B 2-in-1 toothpaste. It helps strengthen your teeth and gives you long-lasting fresh breath.
So fresh, still fresh, and still fresh.
Stay strong, stay fresh. New Oral-B toothpaste for strong teeth and long-lasting fresh breath.
Now let's move on and let's get to the trending business news with Comfort Amadou before we get down to our real topic.
The oil and gas industry has continued to grapple with volatility of oil prices in the face of coronavirus and lately the Ukraine-Russia conflict causing a massive budget shortfall. The Nigerian Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, NIT, in its 2020 oil and gas industry report indicates that Nigeria earned $20.43 billion from the oil and gas sector in 2020, a decline of 40% in contrast to the $32.22 billion realized from the sector in 2019. Executive Secretary of NIT, Orji Ogbonnaya Orji, during the public presentation of the agency's report, outlined some of the revenue streams accounting for liabilities in the sector. On remittance to the Federation account, he says the sector remitted $14.65 billion, while crude oil production in 2020 was at 646.7 million barrels, a 12% decrease when compared to the 735.24 million barrels produced in 2019. While the value of the crude exchange under the direct sale and direct purchase arrangement was $6.7 billion. On gas production, the subsector contributed more than $1.5 billion to the Federation account, with a total gas production at 3.01 million cubic feet in 2020. He urged defaulting companies to remit all revenues being owed the government towards rebuilding the nation's infrastructure. In other news, NGX All-Share Index contracts by 0.23% as the equities market closed on a negative note at 47,154.35 basis points, as against the depreciation of minus 0.01% recorded previously, and its year-to-date return currently stands at plus 10.39% as sale pressure persists. With business news, Comfort Amadou.
Thank you very much, Comfort Amodu, for the business package, and Good Morning Nigeria. Coming up next is Newspaper Review.
Guess we have about 3 papers here this morning, Kingsley.
That's right.
We'll have the Nation,
the Pilot, and the Punch.
And the Punch. So let's see what's on the Nation newspaper here, the headlines. Let's look at the front page. Can we have the front page, please, so that we can now see exactly what the stories are there. At the top of the page, we can see the first few stories, talking about 3 stories there. While you have International Women's Day, talking about protests over rejected gender bills. Then governors' wives join push for action. And then we have House to reconsider no votes. And these are all on page 29 of the Nation's newspaper. That's the Nation newspaper, that is. On page 27, still at the top of the paper, we can still see 2 stories. One on page 27, the other on page 28. On page 27, we have KB killings. Buhari directs tougher action against bandits. On page 28, Electoral Act amendment, court can't stop us, says the Senate. Now, moving down, now we look at the big story, or the main story here, which is APC's soft landing for Buni as Sani Bello consolidates, and then, the riders are Yobe Governor Akpan Udo Dehe eased out. The second rider is Senate caucus decries uncertainty. But still, some other stories on that page include bandits killed 2 abducted Catholic priest in Kaduna. That's on page 2. Then you have on page 2 still, Hades killed 7 in Taraba State. Judgment sacking Umahi throws Ebonyi into confusion. And the writers there, judge asks, CJ to swear in PDP man. And the second one is, I'm still in charge. Will appeal purchased verdict, that's in code, says the governor. On the right-hand side of the page, we still can find one story there, which is the national boast, rather national, that is, boosts agri value chain with 146 billion naira. National boosts agri value chain with 146 billion naira. Details of that on page 4. The picture story here, we have the second Niger bridge that says that is at 84% completion, and then to be opened by President Muhammadu Buhari in October. Now, this bridge is at 4% completed, and then hopefully before the month of October, the remaining percentage or the remaining parts will be completed. And that's it on the Nation newspaper.
Okay, let's also take a look at, excuse me, the front page of Punch. Above the name flag, you have the following headlines. CBN increases currency in circulation by 418 billion naira over cash transactions. APC to release zoning formula, suspends zonal congress amid confusion. That's page 2. PDP submits Umahi's replacement to INEC, and sacked governor sits tight. You have 2 riders to that. Court sacks 15 lawmakers, says Umahi, and legislators can't transfer PDP votes. I remain governor. A court's judgment meant to embarrass APC and federal government, says Umahi. And then the 2 earpieces beside the name flag. Electoral Act, court can't stop amendment, says Lawan. Army probes 500 human rights violation petitions against soldiers. Crude oil price, that's the kicker for the lead headline. Man warns of hyperinflation, and subsidy hits 400 naira. Diesel now 622 naira, that's per liter. Aviation fuel hits 580 naira per liter. Air travelers stranded to pay more. We rely on diesel. Rise in price means higher cost of production. That's man. And the photographs there on the front page come from the various rallies yesterday, being International Women's Day. And close gender gap between men and women in governance, says Minister. Osun PDP governorship primaries produce Adeleke and Babayemi as candidates. Those are parallel primaries. Matawale and Marafa factions clash over spokesman alleged dismissal and forgery. 7 killed as Lagos-bound bus crashes on Niger Highway. And Buhari mourns as bandits kill 40 vigilantes in Kebbi ambush. Gunmen abduct Kaduna Catholic priests and women, children, kill guard. Tinubu proposes meeting with APC Reps Caucus on presidential bid. We also have the Nigerian pilot, and basically the same set of stories. But let's just take a look very quickly at the headlines they have. That's the Nigerian pilot. International Women's Day. Buhari says women can't be deprived for long. APC crisis. We won't resign until we hear from Buhari, says Akpan Udo Edehe. That's the APC story there on page 7. Sacked. That's the headline for that. Justice Inyang Ekwo of the Federal High Court sacks Ebonyi State Governor and Deputy. Also sacks 17 members of Ebonyi Assembly for dumping PDP for APC. Governor Mahi says he's still governor. Declares judgment null and void. As PDP submits names of Uduma Agariwe and Udogu Fred as governor and deputy to INEC. Bandits, well, that says bandits kill of, that's a typo there. That's 60, reporting 60 vigilantes killed in Sokoto, and President Muhammadu Buhari is mourning. Reps to reconsider 3 gender bills as governors' wives join protest. Senate rejects court ruling on Electoral Act amendment. And then Russia-Ukraine war, oil price hits $130 per barrel. And IGP, that's Inspector General of Police, orders evacuation of exhibit vehicles from stations nationwide. And federal government releases 10 billion naira to speed up work on presidential wing clinic. Second Niger bridge set for commission in October. That's according to the Chief of Staff, Gambari.
Oh, well, the killings are back again, of course. Yeah. Taraba, Kebbi, Kaduna, and the court issues, as you may think, at least campaigning time, of course, politics is just around the corner, so these things are back again.
Well, they're back again. But let's begin with the tragedy in Kebbi, where vigilantes were ambushed by bandits.
Yeah.
The numbers are conflicting. The Punch is reporting 40, and the Nigerian pilot is reporting 60. Whatever the numbers are, 1, 2, 3, 4, they are human beings.
They still
and
remain
we're performing security duties in Kebbi State, and the menace of bandits in the northwestern part of the country. That menace has been on for a while. The military and other security agencies are doing their best, and so this is the civil support for the military activities, and unfortunately they ran into an ambush by the bandits, which tells us that the bandits are alive and well, and we also have to find out if there was collusion where the vigilantes betrayed by some other persons who probably passed information to them to say, oh, the vigilantes at some point, will be on that axis where they were attacked.
There has been that call ever since, for the public, for the members of the community to really assist the security agencies with information. And when this information are not forthcoming, sometimes when they, come in reverse order, talking about, instead of giving it to the, people that require it, they give it to the other part, for other people who really want to really wreak havoc on the people. Most likely this could be an information given out, and then they just got these guys, ambushed and they killed.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, really.
Yeah, may their souls rest in peace. There are the other stories, of course, are also very important. The big story yesterday was the court decision by the Federal High Court sitting in Abuja, saying that the Ebonyi State Governor and his deputy who defected from the PDP on the platform of which they were elected to the APC in 2020 should lose their seats.
Yeah.
Of course, it's packed off a whole lot of debate, along, of course, with the members of the State House of Assembly who also defected from the PDP, the platform on which they were elected, to the APC. Now, Punch is reporting court sacks 15 lawmakers. The pilot is reporting 17 members of the State House of Assembly. Online, I had read 16 members of the State House of Assembly. Now, this is an issue that, of course, goes to the heart again of our constitutional jurisprudence. One of the things that we have grappled with since 1999 is how to deal with defection. Now, for the Houses of Assembly at the state and also at the national level, the constitutional provisions are pretty clear that members of the legislature, federal or state, may defect from the party on the platform of which they were elected to another party, depending on the occurrence of one or two circumstances. If there is a division in the party, that's one, or that party on the platform on which they were elected had merged with another party. It had become one of the legacy parties, ceased to exist, X, Y, Z. So on that account, you do not, of course, lose your seat. Otherwise, if those circumstances do not arise and you defect, the constitutional provision is for you to lose your seat. For you to lose your seat, and then, of course, you get a by-election conducted to fill that vacancy arising from that. But it so happened that when PDP was in power and it was the recipient of the decampees, there seemed to be some tardiness in complying with those clear constitutional provisions. And so they were happy that their numbers were swelling. And so under the current circumstance, you are also having the same joy being expressed that, our numbers are swelling, and so on and so forth. But it's on the executive side that the issue, of course, has been a bit tougher. And the argument that there is no constitutional provision relating to that is one that the judge, in this particular case, Justice Iyagekwo, has addressed on the basis of the pleadings by the parties before it. And the clear argument is as follows, because if you recall, Nadabo, the governor of Zamfara, Matawale, also decamped. He was elected on the platform of the PDP, and this, of course, followed the fact that APC, which had won all the elections in that state, was deemed not to have been a bona fide participant in the election. So he along with PDP members, then, of course, stepped into the shoes, being the first runner-up, as it were. But he then defected to the APC. The PDP went to court. A court in Guzo, that's the capital of Zamfara, held. And I found that a bit curious, with the greatest respect to his lordship, to say that these were pre-election or post-election matters, and that if they were pre-election matters, they should have taken the case to an election tribunal. Certainly, I didn't see how that arose. And then the lordship also heard that was in February this year, that there was no infraction of the Constitution by Matawale in decamping from the PDP to the APC. But the one that was given yesterday in a boy by the Federal High Court judge sitting in Abuja, Justice Inyangekwo, followed a number of arguments by the PDP that, namely, you were elected on this platform, you moved over to another party, and the core of the argument is as follows. The Supreme Court itself has held that the votes in an election belong to a political party, not to an individual. So if you have now left the party on the platform of which you left, you cannot transfer those votes from the PDP, for instance, to the APC. And so if you go, you forfeit all the rights, so you become an individual citizen to pursue whatever other ambitions you have. So that's what has affected the governor and the deputy governor. But as I said, this is a court of first instance, and we're going to see how that plays out. They, of course, relied on what happened in Kogi. You remember the Kogi election? The Kogi case. Yes, when Audu died in the course of that election. And incidentally, it is one of the provisions being considered for amendment to the 1999 Constitution in the course of this fifth iteration.
It's really an unfolding story now, and that's why it begins anyway, and so many arguments are going to come up there.
Yeah, but another point that we should also stress, there ought to be some restraint when reacting to decisions of courts. Name-calling, insults, or even innuendos as to whether a judgment was purchased or otherwise without proof, is insulting to the third arm of the government. There are ways you can, when a decision is given, as the court pleases, your rights have not been extinguished, and those rights include the right of appeal.
And that's it. Thank you so much for that analysis, Kensley. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. We'll now take a break. We'll be back in a moment with the main package of the day. Stay with us.
157-kilometer Lagos-Ibadan Railway is the first double-track standard gauge railway to be built in West Africa. The Mobolaji Johnson train station is a masterpiece, an infrastructure that is gradually becoming an iconic building in Lagos State. The modern facilities put the station on a world map of train stations. Likewise, other new train stations across the country built to world-class standards. The train and its convenience is indeed an admirable effort, with commendations from Nigerians.
This is a station that we have to commend the federal government for putting a beautiful face, empowering us in Lagos State, not only in economic and political arena.
I can say that I'm really impressed with the infrastructures in place. Kudos to the Minister of Transportations. Kudos to the federal government.
Truly, good things are coming out of Nigeria, and the federal government is deserving of all the applause.
Shola, come and help me. You need to learn. But I'm more interested in drawing. How are you going to be part of the business if you don't learn? You just don't understand.
Morning. Anyone for some Lipton?
The rich taste of Lipton awakens body and mind.
Let me have a look at your drawings. Son, these designs are amazing.
Lipton Yellow Label Tea. Awaken to what really matters.
Our pastors, our imams, in every church, in every mosque. Please realize that in the course of praying for peaceful and transparent elections, we all have duties beyond prayers. If we want a stable society before, during, and after the elections, what should you be saying to those that worship with you? All Sundays and all Fridays, you are saddled with the responsibility of bringing up good generations. It is therefore your duty to both man and God to ensure peace all the time, no matter about elections alone. People talk to people and people listen. Talk to your followers. Make them listen to ensure peaceful 2023 elections. This message is from the National Orientation Agency.
Well, the housing solution we have developed is a multifaceted one. First, we have tried to lead a program to build what we think will be an acceptable and hopefully affordable housing type based on surveys we did in 2015-2016 and construction that started in 2017. And that's going on in 34 states as the National Housing Program.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
COVID-19, that is the black swan of the century, has actually hit the whole world very hard, even the strongest of economies, and Nigeria was not spared. But due to the proactive stance and steps that the President has taken, we've been able to come out quickly. The President has consistently said we must invest in infrastructure. Even as we're investing in human capital, that we must invest in infrastructure, because at the end of the day, that is what will bring about a sustainable economic growth. So the President has given us our directive. He has said you must make sure you pay salaries and pay pensions, but you also make sure that the critical projects of roads, railway, airports, bridges, major infrastructure that are meant to drive the growth of the economy, that we consistently invest in them, even if we have to continue to borrow to do so.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
The Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative says a lot in the 2020 oil and gas industry audit report released on Monday in Abuja. Now here is Benny Adams, a teaser that is on the as a prompt for us for the conversation before we get started.
In an era where there is scarcity of resources for government spending, NAIT is providing information and direction as to where and how government can generate more revenue.
The unprecedented reporting on the extractive sector has produced groundbreaking and timely disclosures on revenue generation and management in the sector.
The report disclosed that $14.65 billion, representing 71.17% of total earnings in 2020, was remitted to the Federation account, while total financial flows from oil and gas sector to government in 10 years was $394.029 billion. The report also revealed that government can increase spending on infrastructure development if fuel subsidy is removed and crude oil theft checked. This is in addition to recovery of $3.17 billion owed the federal government by 51 companies through taxes, royalties, and concession rentals. NAIT has produced 13 cycles of oil and gas industry reports, 11 cycles of solid minerals, 3 cycles of fiscal allocation and statutory disbursement audit reports. The unveiling of the solid minerals report, NAIT says, will be done soon.
Thank you very much, Benny Adams, for that background. With us in the studios now to drill further into the reports published by NAIT on Monday this week, let's welcome the Executive Secretary of NAIT, Dr. Orji Obunoya Orji. Dr. Orji, pleasure to have you this morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians. Thank you for inviting me.
All right, let's also welcome Faith Nwadishi. Faith Nwadishi is the Executive Director, Center for Transparency Advocacy and convener Women in Extractives. And by the way, she was at some time in the past a member of the board of NATI and also a member of the board of the Global EITI, that's the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative. Faith, delighted to have you this morning.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Nigerians. Thank you for having me.
Well, that's good. We also have right here in our studio Awal Musa Rafsanjani, that is the Executive Director, SISLAC. You're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria, Awal.
Thank you very much, and good morning, Nigerians.
Thank you so much. And also we have Peter Ebule, who is joining us from Lagos, from our Lagos studio. That is, Peter Ebule is a civil society representative on the NATI National Stakeholders Working Group, NATI board. You're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. Good morning, Nigerians.
All right, once again, I'd delight to have all our guests with us for today's conversation. Let's begin by taking a broad look at the reports, the three sets of reports that NATI unveiled on Monday. The Executive Secretary, we have seen some of the numbers in our reports, in our business report as well as in the background. What do these numbers speak to? Is our extractive industries, any heavier, or are they getting sick?
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity. I think the job of NATI, when Nigeria signed into the Global Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative in 2003, began implementation in 2004, and supported
all right, Dr. Orji, Obunoya Orji, we'll have to pause you. We understand that there's some audio challenge with you, and of course, you will not be shocked by this because you are a veteran broadcaster yourself, and for those who do not know, for many years he was State House correspondent for the Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria. So the audio will be sorted out shortly by our engineers, if they are in here, so that he provides the link for this conversation to start. But while that it's been sorted out in terms of his audio, let's bring in Faith Nwadishi, who herself is familiar with the processes of NATI reports as well as the linkage between NATI and what the EITI principles and standards mandate. Faith Nwadishi, tell us, I mean, you are familiar with this business. What is it that we are looking at?
Thank you so much. We're actually looking at a country that is run by revenue that you get from the extractive resources. And when you talk about the extractive resources, you're looking at revenue that you get from crude and gas, solid minerals like we have in Nigeria. So we're looking at the linkage between the revenue and the level of development that you have in a country, and also linking it to citizens being able to use the same information to hold government accountable. You know that these resources are held on behalf of citizens. So the utilization of the resources, how it's come in and how it goes out, citizens should be aware of that, and that's the role of NATI, putting it out there, reconciling documents and revenues from government and companies, and putting it out there for citizens to interrogate. Now, the duty of NATI is to let citizens have access to this information. The duty and responsibility of citizens and civil society organizations especially is to take that report and interrogate it, bring out salient questions from the report and begin to hold government agencies, government officials accountable for the kind of reports that we're getting. And over the years, and I want to say that over the years, NATI has always done this. We have seen the reforms with the Petroleum Industry Act that we now have. We have seen reforms that is coming into the sector. We have also seen that because of the reports that we're getting, we are now generating even more revenue from the solid mineral sector. Before the NATI reports and all of that, not a lot of people paid attention to what is happening to the solid mineral sector. Now they have gone beyond revenue generation from the oil and gas, solid minerals. They have also now gone to what they call the fiscal allocation and statutory disbursement, looking at where these revenues go. And it's very interesting. It's just that at this stage, I feel that Nigerians have this information within their purview, but they have not been able to open that information and use it, utilize it in the way that they should use it. And that's the whole essence of NATI and EITI, ensuring that citizens understand that they have a role to play in the management of the revenues of the natural resources.
But that's a core mandate, really. And then if I should really take it over from Dr. Oji and then bring it over to you, the question Kinsley posed earlier on, talking about how NATI has fared in this regard. Has it been performing very well, really?
Yes, not only that because I'm a Nigerian, but I sat on the international board for 6 years, representing Anglophone Africa. Twice, Nigeria got the Best Implementing Country Award. Nigeria was also the very first country in the EITI history that had a legislation on the EITI. And then the EITI has been evolving. When the EITI started, the EITI, it's more like an experiment that is happening. When it started, there were no rules, but eventually they came up with what we call the EITI rules. From the EITI rules, by 2013, we started having the EITI standard, and we have had 3 standards. There was the 2013 standard, 2016 standard, and now the 2019 standard. You see, because of the participation of civil society, because of the participation of citizens, it is improving, and Nigeria has been in the forefront of ensuring this improvement. Now, I've talked about the legislation, I've talked about Nigeria winning the award as Best Implementing Country. Nigeria was also one of the pilot countries that started the beneficial ownership transparency in the extractive industry. And Nigeria right now sits as the chair of the Committee for Contract Transparency globally. So that's to show you that the Nigerian EITI has played a lot of role in the evolution of the EITI and what it has become now. And citizens should really sit in a position to begin to interrogate that, because that's the beauty of it all. You have all of these reports, interesting reports coming out from the NATI report 2020, and citizens are just still like, maybe they're not yet aware of what is happening. There's a lot we can interrogate. There are many things that are coming out in this report that have come out in all of the reports of NATI. So we are asking, what is the National Assembly doing? Why are they not interrogating it? Why citizens are not interrogating all of this information that is within our purview?
All right, Faith Nwadishu, thank you very much there for your initial comments. The gods are still angry with Dr. Oji Oji. So they will sort out the glitch in his audio presently. But before we do that, let's go over to our Lagos Network Center, where we earlier introduced Mr. Peter Egbule. Mr. Peter Egbule, of course, you represent civil society on the National Stakeholders Working Group of NATI. What is your view on these reports that have just been unveiled? Was this a painstaking exercise, or what was your experience?
Very good question. It was really painstaking, and I must tell you that it is one report, and that is the practice, not just the 2020 report, but all the report that NATI had published. It goes through a lot of painstaking process. Let me also tell you that even before the commissioning of the audit agencies, there is a stakeholders engagement that determines and agrees on the template. And this meeting with all the stakeholders include both the companies, the civil society organizations, and also the government entities. So we agree on the template. So after agreement or agreeing on the template, you move over to getting the initial reports. Those reports are validated. Whatever information we get from the payers, we corroborate it with what we get from the receivers. They corroborate. Both parties sign off on that and agree that those information are correct before publishing. So whatever you see has gone through that rigor of not just gathering, but the information directly from the receiver and the payers, but also making sure that they sign off, all the covered entities sign off on those figures on that report. So it is a very strong information. Is a report that we can all depend on, rely on. It is very rigorous, and I must tell you, it's something that Nigeria should depend on.
Okay, that's good enough, at least for a start. Let's hear from Rafsanjani. What your assessment would be of this report vis-a-vis what it was in 2019?
Thank you very much. I think if there's anything that we will have to do is to commend the NIT for consistency in terms of providing audit reports, or let me say accountability within the extractive sector. Before the emergence of the EITI in Nigeria, that sector is one of the most creative agencies that has totally no transparency, and Nigerians have no any information on how our resources are managed. I think with the coming of the NIT, we have seen improvement in terms of knowing exactly what the country is earning, what the country is losing, what the country is not also receiving from companies that are supposed to pay taxes to the country. This report is helping us to understand that. Also, this report is also helping us to know those shortcomings that we continue to experience. For example, we know that we still have some issues that need to be strengthened in order to achieve maximum transparency and proper utilization of the resources that we have in Nigeria. One of the things is looking at the operationalization of contract transparency within the extractive sector. I think a lot that needs to be done in that area. Also, I think we need to also see how the beneficial ownership can be put into practice. Thanks to NIT, Nigeria is one of the few countries that have actually gone ahead to ensure that the beneficial ownership in the oil and gas sector is the register is actually established. There are very few countries that have actually done that. Nigeria has done that, and I think it's a commendable thing that we have done that. But if you look at the report, you will see that Nigeria is still facing serious crisis of oil theft. Nigeria is also seeing a lot of incapacitation to utilize our refineries to make them active and put them to productive capacity. In this report, we are seeing it is almost zero from both Port Harcourt, Warri, and Kaduna refineries, despite a lot of money spent in the past and even currently to make those refineries to work. We are still battling with that. Again, this report also has shown that the subsidy fraud that government has been paying need to be looked into, because Nigerians have convinced themselves that there's nothing like subsidy in the money that Nigeria is spending on behalf of Nigerians. What you see is outright something else, but Nigerians, and even the Naiti had agreed that the subsidy fraud, which even the president in the last 7 years has actually talked so much about. In fact, he believed at that time subsidy is simply just fraud. But we continue to service fraud. We continue to say that despite the so-called subsidy, see what Nigerians are buying petrol and see the difficulty. And we have not been able to really ensure that we carry out the necessary reforms that will allow our refineries to work. So I think, if you look at the losses, because we have lost a lot of revenue as a result of oil theft, as a result of even the poor metering, because up to now, we are still using analog metering system. We have not been able to liberate ourselves from having a more scientific, up-to-date metering system, which allows a lot of people to divert the crude, instead of having it, to the government. So
Right.
a lot are in this report that are positive and that we need to, consolidate in order to actualize maximum transparency and benefit in the, oil and gas and solid mineral for Nigeria.
Okay. Rafsanjani, thank you very much. Now we bring in Dr. Oji Ogbonaya Oji. He's in a perfect state now to respond to our questions and then also participate in the conversation. I asked a question earlier about an overview of the reports. What some of the issues, of course, have been touched on by the other contributors. But tell us, what is it that you were looking at that then formed the crux of these 3 reports that you released on Monday?
Well, thank you very much. And I would like to thank the previous, my colleagues on the panel, the previous guests for all their kind words and clear understanding of the focus and where NIT is going. Nigeria joined the EITI globally in 2003, began implementation in 2004, and was the first country to support initiative with a specific law. And I am very glad and happy to have been part of this process in the last 12 years. So I'm not very new in the process, and both local and at the international scene, we all are international partners. There are today 55 member countries implementing the global EITI. Some of these countries are either rich in oil or gas, or solid minerals, or all of them. In the case of Nigeria, we are rich in all of them. And that's why Nigeria is highly respected within the global EITI. And under the EITI process, we are implementing two major obligations. One, our international EITI standard, which applies to all the member countries, which you must adhere to. So our report, the report we have just published, responds to all the global requirements that enables Nigeria to be in good standing. Secondly, we are responding to our national obligations under the NIT Act. The NIT Act provides and gives us powers to reconcile payments made by companies and the receipts received by government agencies that either warehouse or take custody of these funds. And then we're also responding by going the next level to say, did companies pay what they should pay, and did the government receive what it should receive? We're equally moving forward under our law. These are beyond the EITI to say, now after these revenues have come in, where is the money? What did we use the money for? And that's why the 3 reports we released on Monday. One is in oil and gas, covering the period of the year 2020 only. One is, the other one is on the solid minerals, covering the period 2020. But in the oil and gas, in the fiscal allocation and statutory disbursement report, we looked at 2017 up to 2020, 3 years gap. And we picked 9 states all over the country. These 9 states are either rich in oil or rich in minerals, solid minerals, or in both of them. And we use these 9 states as case studies to find out that these 9 states are states that benefit from the derivation. And we're also looking at the various government agencies that receive money directly from oil and gas revenues, directly. Some of them, like the NDDC, the TED Fund, PDTF, the Local Content Development Board, and so on, are also outlined in the report. We follow these agencies to say, yes, you have got this money, where are the projects that you have done with them? This is part of our national obligation. The report we released on Monday contains clear information and precise information and data As a member of our board and the chair of the Civil Society Steering Committee on our board, Peter Bule in Lagos have highlighted, the reports are, the facts in the reports are on granite, information you can take to the bank. The structure we have in Haiti wasn't necessarily set up by me. The structure in Haiti is solid, it's global standard, and if you come into that structure, the minimum you can do is to sustain that structure and expand it. The structure of independence, structure of courage, structure of accountability, structure of efficiency, and structure of precision in getting things done. We are a government agency of a kind, and that's why sometimes we speak. People will begin to wonder whether we're a civil society or a non-governmental organization or we're a government agency. We're purely a government agency funded by government. But government of Nigeria over the years have done us one favor. They have just left Nigeria as it is. And wherever we come to ask for anything, they are able to approve it and give us the say, let us carry our own wahala and go. Because they tolerate us, they allow us, they don't interfere. That we don't take for granted. And that's why we provide facts. Because the bane of developing countries is planning without facts, planning without numbers. You are planning for a people, you don't know what the people need. So 90 reports sends clear signals of what should be done in the oil and gas sector, in the mining. And we have done tremendous work in the oil and gas sector, with all modesty. 90 recommended since 2006 for the Petroleum Industry Act. We called it Petroleum Industry Bill. It's now an act of law, and we followed it through all these 18 years, and it's now law. 90, all the specific recommendations, 90 recommended a lot of quiet reforms that took place in the various agencies, and we commend the agencies for, acknowledging the fact. The FRS, at the launching of our report, openly said that working with us enabled them to realize over several trillions of naira. Because we point to the fact where the leakages are and how you can block those leakages and revenues will come. For instance, in 2019 report, we disclosed that 77 companies were owing the federal government over $6 billion. That's not a small money to a country that is borrowing. Before now, that information was lying fallow. And once we did, the companies didn't take it easy with us. But then we said, this is information that our country needs at this time. We need the money. And between that time we released the money, we released that information, and now our 2020 report confirms that the level of indebtedness has dropped from over $6 billion to $3 billion, which means that $3 billion had come in. They don't pay to Haiti. We don't even take any aspect of the money. We said, go and pay to the relevant agencies that collect this money. For all the taxes of any kind, you go to FRS. For all the royalty that you can think of, you go to the defunct DPR, which is now part of the agencies created by the PIB, and pay. All we require is, when we require for this information data from the relevant agencies, let us see evidence of payment. 51 companies are still in default, and currently over $3 billion are outstanding. We have commenced process for 2021 report. We want to see. And when we released that information, people thought we were, but by the time they saw the response, which means that over $3 billion have come into government coffers directly to the various engines, they don't pay to us. And I was laughing when we released that information. People were saying, when have they paid the money? Which account are we paying? We say 90 does not collect money. We depend on government. Government funds our operations. And the government have been fair. They have been very generous. This particular government has been very, very generous to us. This is the first time I'm announcing.
How do you ferret out this information?
We generate this information by, 90 does not manufacture data. Now, we design a template. Template is like a questionnaire. That template is asking specific questions based on the specific operations of the various companies. how the various revenue streams are structured. And we present these templates before the companies and government agencies for review. If, for instance, you are from Thetford and the template is not asking the relevant questions that are allied to your operation, you correct us. We amend it accordingly. When the templates are approved by the companies, the IOCs, the marginal fees, all various funding arrangements in the sector, we share them and give you a deadline to provide us with all those information. We share the same thing with government agencies that collect the money. We share the same information with the agencies, the companies that pay the money. When the informations have come in, we now go to the field to verify the information that have been provided. Based on the information we have found, if any of the information is wrong, we interrogate it. And by the time all the information, we go to another area level of validation, where the companies come and the government agencies sit on a round table with NAITI to say, you said, for instance, Shell, you said you paid $1 million on royalty. Who did you pay to? Oh, I paid to, I keep calling DPR, default DPR. And the DPR representative shows us proof of receipt. If there is any argument over the payment and the receipt, if, for instance, you paid $1 billion and you receive less, we want to know why. If you receive more, we want to know why. If you received the same, that means we have reconciled. But any other argument, we take it further. That is what we do to all the agencies. By the time we finish, we find out if government paid, what companies paid, and what government received are all in alignment. If there is any variance, we pursue it and we report it as such. If it is difficult, and that's what we call unreconciled revenue. You paid me, you said you paid 1 million and I received 700,000, which means that 300,000 is outstanding. Where is it? Because all the companies and agencies are aware that NITI is coming to check. Records keeping keeps improving. People are now aware and more sensitive. And in terms of taxes, if the assessments given are low, that's under assessment. It has its own implications and consequences. If it's more, that's over-assessment. So because we have a template based on law, on provisions and regulations, what the assessment should look like. So it's a very painstaking job. By the time we have finished this draft report, all the agencies in terms of oil and gas for 2020, 69 companies participated. Each and every one of them will sign that the information and facts provided in the report are complete. If there are areas you couldn't provide, you couldn't answer our questions, and you have no other proof to do within the audit window, you'll sign. That's why it's a very painstaking exercise. And that's why nobody contests NITI report. Because NITI report is agency driven. It's companies and agencies driven. It's multi-stakeholders. The civil society oversight this under our board. And by the time the report is out, our board made up of companies, the civil society, the government agencies, and industry experts. They reconcile, including zonal representatives that represent the 6 geopolitical zones of the country. They sign and endorse the report. Nobody can influence the report, not even me, the executive secretary or chairman of the board, because the structure is there and the structure is globally approved. That's how it happens. And by the time we release our report, we expect the civil society, the citizens, the media, like what we are doing now, and government to be able to use that information and ask informed questions. It is in that process that reforms will happen. And it's only when reforms take place that impact can come in. And we are almost there in the oil and gas, because the Petroleum Industry Act, which is a product of our engagement, will change the total architecture, the total environment for the better of how the oil and gas industry will look like.
Okay, Dr. Oji, thank you so much for that explanation. Let's hear from Rafsanjani exactly, because you said the civil society are part of this whole exercise, talking about transparency. Rafsanjani, how much eye have you put on this very process? And then what really came out of it? Are you really in tandem with Dr. Oji and NITI in this regard? Or are there areas you think Naiti it's still or needs to look at?
Okay, thank you very much. Let me say, without being immodest, that the success of Naiti largely is as a result of the support, the partnership, the collaboration that the civil society have continued to provide to the EITI process and the Naiti process, right from inception, when even the country was legislating the Naiti law. Civil society were at the forefront of advocating that to the nation. And we've done that, and we continue to provide support. For example, one of the things that civil society are doing is to, popularize this report, is to digest it, is to ask relevant questions, because there are quite a number of issues that Naiti have recommended over the years. By the way, Naiti had gone beyond even the EITI, standard in terms of even the audit. Nigeria was the first country, apart from the legislation, to also cover 3 audits. That is the process, fiscal, and financial. This was not done by other countries, but Nigeria actually, did that, and this is courtesy of the fact that civil society have been consistent and supportive to the effort of the Naiti. Also, trying to make sure that the process, all the issues that are raised, government take appropriate action. For example, civil society have been asking questions, what are we doing? Because beyond just the audit, what is it that Nigerian government is doing with the resources, with the revenue? This revenue must be utilized for the benefit of Nigerian people, and it must not be stolen. So civil society have been putting their words, ensuring that the revenue allocation that goes to local government, to the state and federal level, are spent judiciously in the interest of Nigerian people. That's one thing that Nigerian civil society are doing with this report. Again, beyond just popularizing the report, we are also making it easy for Nigerians to understand all the jargon, all the grammar, all the technicalities in the report. So civil society are simplifying this report so that ordinary Nigerians can understand what Naiti audit report is all about and how that can be linked with his or her life or with the community lives. So that's another thing that civil society are doing. And then, like I said, still there are certain areas of concern that we have which need to be from the legal perspective, from the act perspective of the Naiti, need to be addressed. For example, sanction. Naiti has minimal powers to deal decisively with all those companies that have continued to refuse to comply or to do what they are supposed to do. So civil society is still advocating that the sanction and the penalty for defaulting or for refusing to comply with the act by companies need to be strengthened, because it is easy, you do all this beautiful work, do the report and everything, and when people continue because of impunity and because of they don't want to be transparent, so they refuse to comply with. Otherwise, you can imagine now we have a lot of debt that companies are supposed to pay, and they are not paying this in. If civil society keep quiet, I am telling you that it will be difficult for government to get this in, because of some interest that some people also in government has with some of this, thing. And that's why we commend Naiti for, ensuring that the beneficial ownership register is established, so that we know who owns this oil block, so that we know who owns the company and what have you, so that there will not be connivance to undermine getting the necessary and relevant taxes to the country and put it to the use for to Nigerian people. So I think this report is helping us to expand transparency. Like I mentioned, we also want to make sure that contract transparency is properly also strengthened and streamlined. We also want to see that the oil metering is also done in a manner that will give us the necessary content or value of petrol that has been taken. Again, we are also advocating that all those lapses identified by the report, like the oil theft, the oil losses, this fraudulent tax, fuel subsidy, These are all things that we have been, we have been studying and seeing how we can advocate for government to take proactive measures. Native success is largely, like I said, civil society, because there's a civil society-driven aspect of it, both local, at international level. It is the civil society that have sustained and maintained the global pressure to ensure that transparency and accountability and proper utilization of these natural resources are being put in place so that the people can benefit from it. A lot of other issues that has to do with the environmental degradation.
Okay. You know what, Rafsanjani, let's pause you in the meantime. We'll come back to some of the other aspects that you haven't touched on. You were going to get into the environmental aspect of the report. We'll come to that. But Faith Wandishi, earlier, you were talking about the utility of the reports of Haiti. Now, the facts and information are out there. How do these aid executive branch decisions or even legislative work? What would you like to see based on your experience in earlier years working on the Native Board as well as the Global EITI?
Thank you so much. What I would like to say is you have this report. I would expect the executive invite the board, Native Board, to do a presentation to the executive and point out the areas of their recommendation. And I expect that the executive will take these recommendations very seriously. The same thing with the National Assembly, the committees that are particularly in charge of the oil and gas, solid minerals, and of course revenue in the country. At a time, the National Assembly was not really in tandem with what the NATI report and NATI itself was all about. But you see that progressively they're beginning to understand the role that NATI is playing. Take the FASD, for instance. That's a very important report because this other report talks about where the revenues are coming in. It's talking about the process. And the Nigerian report itself is very unique. It's different from every other part of the world. EITI is particular about financials, how revenue is coming and who is collecting what, reconciliation. But NATI from the onset, started doing process, doing fiscal, and then, because for you to get the revenue, the amount, you need to know what volumes were sold to get that amount. You also need to know what processes went through. You have laws that outline the processes you must go through before crude is sold and money comes in. So NATI is looking at the entire value chain of the extractive industry, with why the EITI is looking at the financial reserve. And that was what even brought about this terminology, EITI++. Nigeria contributed to that. So when you have this kind of robust experience and process in a country, the executive should take it seriously. And then the National Assembly, on the other hand, because they are representatives of the people, should look at this report very seriously. Now, it took us a lot of time as civil society to get the EITI process to begin to look at even environment, to look at gender, to look at contract transparency, and look at beneficial ownership. There was a time in this country there was this uproar about who are the real owners of the companies, who are the faces behind all of this, and what kind of contracts do you sign? Now, one beautiful thing about contract transparency is that citizens are able to see that contract and begin to remove the responsibility of company and responsibility of government. There's a lot of times so much responsibility is put on company because of corporate social responsibilities. Some of these things are not part of the contract agreements. And then you also have a time where countries are giving incentives to companies. Now, what the executive should do is, if we have laws, policies in the country, for instance, that is giving too much incentive to a particular company because we want them to come to invest, the EITI reports will give you a kind of advice. Because we had a meeting with top executives. I mean, when I say top executives, high-ranking CEOs of oil and gas companies and solid minerals companies, who gave a list of 10 acts that they, as companies, are asking from government on what they want to do before they come for investment. And some of these tax holidays and tax incentives are not part of it. An EITI report will give you such recommendation that you as executive can act. Yeah, exactly. Yes, that's a NATI report. Will give you such recommendations that will do that. And then, for instance, let me give you a very typical example from here. At community level, host community level, there's also this agitation about who are the companies employing. If you go to this report, it gives you data about the statistics on who they have employed. Now, it tells you that about 3% of expatriates, or like in the past, when you have 50% expatriates, now you have more people being employed from the locality where oil operation is happening, not even from other states. If you take the Nigerian, it's giving you that kind of detailed report. So you take this to the Ministry of Labor, for instance, take this up and says, this is a policy. We have the Local Content Development Board. Are we following that policy to ensure that this employment data is complete? So it is a whole policy direction that the executive should follow. Now, the other aspect of it is the National Assembly. The National Assembly, not just the committee itself, even the leadership, there's nothing wrong with asking NATI to do a plenary presentation of this report, because this report tells us that the revenue we got in 2020, about over 50% of that revenue to run our economy came from this sector. So it means everything we have done in this country depends on the proper management of this sector. And we have policy recommendations, policy directions that everybody should be interested in. So, number one, let the Federal Executive Council ask for a presentation from NATI, follow the recommendations, and let the National Assembly do same so that they can begin to pick immediately oversight duties that they have to do to correct some of these mistakes that we have seen in our country.
Okay, that's a good footpath, really, anyway, if they are going to follow that one. But let's hear from Peter Ebule about this issue of legislation. And we're looking at NIT's report over the years, which is, the 13th in the circle now. It's all about transparency, trying to make things plain for everybody to see. Civil societies are there to really put it out to the public to see. And of course, the National Assembly and the executive need to really get NAITI on board too, in order to see how some of this revenue that are still, with some companies can be gotten out. Peter Ebule, let's hear from you. What exactly do you want to see from the National Assembly, talking about how much more we can get from these companies who are yet to comply and yet to really remit their own revenues?
Well, when Dr. Ojo was speaking, he talked about the outstandings in dollars. But I want to talk about the outstanding in Naira because I'm a Nigerian. We have about 1.3 trillion Naira outstanding. Now, that is a financial outstanding. Like some of the speakers have said, NATI report doesn't just look at the financial issues. We look at the process, we also look at the quantities, which has to do with the physical materials and quantities we derive. But very importantly also is that processes have to do with both policies and legislations. That being the case, one other thing that the NATI report does is that it makes recommendations. Some of these recommendations speak to the financial aspect. Some of them speak to the measures. Some other ones speak also to the processes. My own expectation and my own thinking also is that anything we do, no matter the values and figures we churn out in the public, that doesn't translate to the well-being and welfare of the citizen is effort in futility. Like my people on the street will say, na audio money. So, and I expect the government, both the National Assembly and the executive, their own interest is the welfare and the well-being of the citizens. There has been a lot of talk on infrastructure development here and there. We're looking for money. We're having issue with China in terms of funding. But there's some money domiciled there. So those monies are domiciled because it's either the processes are not right to make sure that those monies move from the companies, the payers, into the government coffers, and from the government coffers to physical infrastructure on the street for the well-being and welfare of the citizens. So for the National Assembly, my own specific expectation is that they should look at the processes, at their policy, at their regulations. Are there some changes in some regulations that are very vital to make sure that these monies are not held up in some corners? Also remember that 1.3 trillion today cannot give you the same utility by next year. The value drops naturally. It drops. So it behoves on them to make sure that there are some, apart from the immediate oversight, call these companies to order. Call them to a meeting and find out, why are you owing? If there are sanctions you need to recommend. If there are some policy decisions you need to take, you take. And also beyond that, the executive also, there could be some executive orders. Why are we not getting to that point? So it's a bit frustrating because we're in a position where this report has gone out. Nigerians will start reacting and responding. And it also increases the agitation within the society if there are no corresponding actions from both the National Assembly and the executive arm.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Peter Ebule and Faith and the other guests with us here in the Abuja studios. We'll go on a short break now. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation.
Sharing brings with the Airtel Family Plan. Get bonus talk time, SMS and data for each family member you share with. Dial *141# now. Airtel, the smartphone network.
The ever-busy ancient city of Onitsha is a commercial hub with millions of commuters seamlessly linking other states daily for business, leisure, and other purposes. To upscale its road network, the construction of a 1.6-kilometer-long second Niger bridge, including a 10.3-kilometer highway furnished with other infrastructure, has been in motion by the federal government. This project will ease congestion on the existing 56-year-old Onitsha bridge and boost the economic capacity of the state as it easily connects to other parts of the country. The completion of the world-class second Niger bridge Onitsha will be one of the many proud moments of the state, its people, Nigerians, and foreign investors. Onitsha, which hosts the largest market in Africa, is geared up to boast of an impressive road network. Once again, these moments are made alive by the federal government, and it is deserving of all the applause.
We've been trying our best to contain the situation, and in our operations, we've been able to make a lot of recoveries. We've been able to also arrest suspects that are involved in this kind of activities, and we've been able to also recover particularly arms and ammunition from those who are carrying it unlawfully and disturbing the peace of the people. But generally, our morale in the Nigerian police is always guided by our commitment to do what we have sworn to do. Peace and security must be looked into as a priority by all. To look at security as the business of all of us.
This message is from the Federal Minister of Information and Culture.
We are all Nigerians. Against all odds, we shall and must remain united. We may have our challenges, our problems, and setbacks. However, together we shall overcome them all. What doesn't break us shall make us stronger. This is the mindset that shall bring peace, progress, and prosperity to our beloved country. Do not let tribal and religious sentiments govern how you think, act, or feel. Don't be influenced by those who want to destroy our precious national unity. Everybody who's a Nigerian is your brother and your sister. This is the mindset of the new Nigeria. It is also the mindset that we must all adopt. Let us support each other in creating the Nigeria of our dreams. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
As the 2023 elections draw near, remember, evil prospers when good men and women only wish for peace, but never take a step to make peaceful elections happen. Are you a father? Are you a mother? What are you saying to your children as elections approach? Have you warned them not to let themselves be used to cause violence? Have you explained to them what the consequences of electoral violence might be? Do your part to make peaceful elections happen. Talk to your children. Protect them from unscrupulous politicians who want to put them in harm's way, while their own children are comfortable at home, within, and outside the country. Let's join hands to make 2023 elections peaceful. This message is from the National Orientation Agency, NOAA.
You're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We still have all our 4 guests with us for the closing leg of this conversation. Let's bring in again the Executive Secretary of NATI, Dr. Oji Oji. Rafsanjani has touched on 2 or 3 aspects I would like you to also speak to in terms of the NATI 2020 report. Crude oil theft and fuel subsidy regime. And allied to that fuel subsidy regime is the contentious issue, some would say, of the state of our refineries. So what does the NATI report say about this? Crude oil theft or crude oil loss, subsidy regime, and more particularly, local refining capacity, and what are the recommendations?
Thank you very much. I think at this point, it might be important to just give a highlights of some of the key issues raised by the report. First of all, we have discussed the number of the revenues indebtedness by the companies. And I may quickly want to say this. We are not against the companies operating in Nigeria. NITI is not against the companies. We are supporting the companies to do good business in Nigeria. Without the companies, there will be no industry. Without the companies, there will be no revenue to remit. Without the companies, there won't be any investment in the industry. So the companies are real assets we must manage carefully. But we are only asking that how they operate in other jurisdictions, they should also operate that same way in Nigeria. In other jurisdictions, nobody owes tax. You have to pay your taxes and levies, concessions, and respect the agreements. So we cannot be sleeping on our rights. NITI's duty is to bring this information to the public domain, and I'm glad the companies are responding from 77 to 21 to 51 that were owing. And I do hope that by 2021 report, the figure keeps coming down. We want to get to a level where no company is owing. We don't need any company doing business in Nigeria to owe us taxes. That's all we're saying. Because NITI will be here to bring an, and it will get to a point where if you don't owe, if you are owing, we will publish your name. Now he's just mentioning numbers. We don't want to get to that point. Government needs revenue, and morally, you cannot be asking for road, water, electricity, security when you are owing taxes. Good business environment. You pay your taxes, live to your obligation, and then expect the government to do its own part. That's all we are saying. So company indebtedness is one area that was highlighted in the report. The other area is on oil theft. We have figures of what exactly has been lost, and we made far-reaching recommendations. And there have been insinuations in some ways that, look, this crude theft can be addressed if we call those stealing and harmonize the building of illegal refineries and moderate them so that they can. We don't accept that kind of recommendation because that will be encouraging bad behavior. Crude theft is breaking pipeline and stealing somebody's investment. It's not the same thing with artisanal mining. Artisanal mining is somewhere that villagers go, they dig the ground, and for years, for days and years, looking for mineral. We don't sanction that, but it's not the same way. And dig out either gold or diamond and sell, maybe to keep their body and soul together. They don't break anybody's pipeline. They only damage the environment. That's one area that we say, if we harmonize those kind of area, them and then they stop damaging the environment, put them through training, they could be contributing to some minor revenue. But
Dr. Oja, I'm not cutting you short here, but I just want to draw attention to one of your recommendations in this regard.
Yeah.
And that's talking about the companies should also work with the federal government to ensure the implementation of fiscal provisions in the PIA for the welfare and host communities, and thus strengthening responsibility for communal ownership of crude oil pipelines. Communal ownership of crude oil pipelines.
Fantastic. That's where I'm getting to.
Yeah.
But you don't work closely with government by breaking pipelines that were already laid. And you damage the environment, you just scoop some crude, the half of what you are scooping, the rest are damaging the environment, creating a very, very hostile environment. So that's what we are trying to say. So secondly, we have specific recommendations on oil theft, which some of them you have highlighted. We can discuss these for a very long time. It's just a summary of what we recommended. Okay. The main report contains how this can be done. Now, we have specific information on how much we earned, over $20 billion. What we earned in 2019 and what we earned in 2020 was the epicenter of COVID. 2019, we earned over $34 billion. This year, last 2020, we earned $20 billion. We have specific recommendations on our contribution, on the industry contribution to GDP. We have specific recommendations on contribution to employment. We have recommendations on how the sector can respond effectively to a new regime governed by Petroleum Industry Act. On subsidy, we have specific recommendations. We have, since 2006, recommended that subsidy should be removed. It was a very bold decision, courageous recommendation since 2006. And every year is getting worse. This year alone, 106 billion naira was paid as subsidy. I think subsidy is subjecting Nigeria to economic slavery. And right now, if you ask people how much they are buying fuel on the streets, and it's not available. Some are selling up to 800 liters. It couldn't be that bad if subsidy removed. But we are quickly said to add, government makes decisions based on gamut of information available to them. Government is concerned at what happens, how will supply be sustained, what will be the social impact. So we have no control over when, how subsidy. That's a decision government can make. But we are very sure that if we put in enough effort to make sure that our refineries are working, because if you remove subsidy immediately and then subject the destiny of our country to marketers, it is also dangerous. So, and Haiti is currently serving in the committee set up by the NNPC on the rehabilitation of the refineries. I'm not able to give you the specific status of where we are now, but a lot of work is going on quietly. When this idea came, the GMD spoke to me and requested that we send in a representative. Why? Because they think with us there, it won't be promises and promises without impact. We are serving in that a committee that is set up by the NNPC to oversee the rehabilitation of the 3 refineries. I think I'm not able, like I said, to give you the update of where we are, but a lot of work is going on. If we get to that level and the Dangote refineries come on stream, just some semblance of fallback situation. But for the government, we must, as citizens, give all the considerations that is required to free Nigeria from subsidy. The money we pay on subsidy is ridiculous and is something that is unsustainable. Secondly, we have specific recommendations on some pending issues, legacy issues that we are considering with the NNPC on a joint agreement, on a joint committee on remediation. And we have set up, we have revived the IMTT, Interministerial Tax Team, that will look at the gamut of the 16 recommendations we have made and send them. But I must say that the impact of NAITI in specific terms is providing information and data that you require for national planning. And that's where I bring in the issue of the National Assembly. The National Assembly, all my colleagues on this panel have spoken very well, are doing quite well so far with NAITI. As I speak to you now, there are 4 public hearings on our report that are slated to happen. One of them is on the level of indebtedness. The National Assembly House of Representatives set up a committee, ad hoc committee, to based on the 90 report. That committee would have met last week, but for the constitutional review session that took the whole time of last week. So in the next coming days, there will be 4 public hearings, both in the Senate and in the House of Representatives. But they can do more, because specific role of the National Assembly is provided in the 90 Act. We're also looking at reviewing our act, because the 90 Act was enacted in 2007. Between 2007 and now, a lot of water has passed under the bridge. And the new PIA that is coming on board makes it very impossible for the 90 Act to function. On area of sanctions, when I was appointed in February last year, the immediate in the first 1 month was to be able to strengthen our ability to enforce sanctions for bad behavior and incentives for good conduct. We signed an MOU with the EFCC, we signed an MOU with the ICPC, and we signed MOU with the Nigeria Financial Intelligence Unit. As we release these reports will also immediately go to them. They will study the reports and see clear areas of financial malfeasance and impunity. And that's where the action begins. Like companies failing to comply. Because in the past, they have said 90 is weak, 90 doesn't have teeth to bite. We have to go somewhere else to borrow the teeth to bite, if that is what is required. So, and the EFCC, ICPC, they were all there. So those who are taking our report for granted are just not very well informed about the consequences. And it is easier to comply with us, provide information, than to go the gamut of security investigations, okay, which now follow after we have released our report.
Okay, Dr. Oji, thank you very much. I would like Mr. Peter Ibule in Lagos to speak very briefly, because we're pressed for time now, on what you refer to as FASD, that's Fiscal Allocation and Statutory Disbursement. We understand that 9 states were chosen for this purpose, whether producing oil and gas or whether extractive industries. That's to say, fiscal allocation following the money. What do we know from your reports in terms of your findings?
So, findings, Bob, I need to make this clear. We are the pilot state, where we have chosen some states that are very rich in both, especially in the solid mineral. What that does is for us to track this money is received. Is there a way we can translate it to the point it gets to the citizens? Well, in terms of FASD, what that means is the allocation of those monies that we can track and trace to the extractive industry. So specifically, so what is important is it brings a nexus. That's a nexus between the generation of revenue, disbursement of revenue, and the expenditure of those revenue in very clear terms. So it is a very important aspect, which again, like some speakers have said, Nigeria is the only country that has gone to that length. And I give kudos to Nati, not because I'm part of the system, but it's a reality. So it's something we want to scale up if we have the capacity, the support, because these things cost money, like the ES have said. Nati is not an income generating agency. We go to government sometimes cap in hand to ask for support. We can do as much as we have the financial support to do. So we hope to scale it up to the entire 36 states and the FCT to be able to trace where this money is not just being generated at domicile, but the expenditure, the releases, the actual contracting, where these monies go to. So that is what we do in that aspect.
Thank you so much. We're pressed for time, really. Faith, can we really get your thoughts on the issue, the Executive Secretary mentioned, the MOUs they've signed, Nati signed with the, EFCC, ICPC, and some other organizations, some other see to it that, sanctions or rather implementation of these reports and some of these companies are made to really see the right and the good thing in trying to comply with these rules. How much do you want to see this thing for start?
I want to see people prosecuted. I want to see people named and shamed. I want to see people also give incentives for good behavior. Because there's one aspect of the report that I think the EFCC and co should look at. Now, the report says the issue about the direct sales, direct purchase. Now, we have 4 refineries that produce 0% over the years. People were working there. What has happened? I expect that the AFCC will go there and look at that, what has happened there. The issue of subsidy, who got what. We have a situation whereby people were supplied crude product over $6 million worth of product, and then the product we are getting back is less than the amount that we have sent out, without looking at the byproducts that is even supposed to come from the crude itself. Now, what the report is saying is that we have sent X amount of crude out, and we expect to get X amount of product back, but we are getting minus, lower than what we have sent, without taking into consideration. So I expect the FCC, the ICPC, and the NFIU to look into all of that, so that the issue about who gets what, who is paying what, why is it that we are sending X amount of crude out and we're getting less for what we have sent out? Why is it that we have 4 refineries, nameplate 445,000 barrels per day? The 4 refineries were not giving crude in 2020 from the report that we got. They were not giving crude. So this crude that was meant to be refined in the country was taken out, and we got less for what we had actually sent. So if you get an EFCC or ICPC or NFIU looking into that and giving us details of that, that will be satisfying to me as a Nigerian, especially going through this series of fuel scarcity and hardship that we have seen in the last 1 month.
All right. Rob Sanjani, what's your final thought on the issue of the companies who are to comply?
My final take on this is that the lives of the people in the community where this oil is being taken, the destruction that they experience as a result of these activities of the companies must be properly brought an end, because you cannot be destroying the community. You cannot be making the environment completely inhabitant, and you think you are contributing. You are actually killing the people. So measures must be taken, and this report must cover that. The second thing that I also want to say is that the audit report must contribute to governance, transparency and accountability, especially as the government is talking about anti-corruption. There's no way we will continue business as usual if we are to really, improve the way and manner in which, the sector is being run. I think this is my final take.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Rafsanjani. Dr. Oji, your closing thoughts, very briefly.
Yeah, number one, on the issue of making sure we translate this report to policy change, positive policy change. We have sent the report to the president. We have sent the report to the secretary to the government or the federation. Sorry, we have also sent the report to the vice president, Mr. Vice President and chairman of the National Economic Council. We have sent the report to the National Assembly, the House, and the Senate. We have sent the report to the Auditor General of the Federation. We have sent the report to the relevant agencies that we have collaboration with, anti-corruption agencies. We have also shared the report with the companies themselves. Then we have a 5-year strategy plan. Our job in oil and gas have gone very far, but we're moving more now into the solid mineral sector with full blast. And I think our 5-year strategy plan will chart a complete new way where the 90 will be heading in the next 5 years.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Oji Obunoya. Oji, that, of course, brings to a close our conversation segment on Good Morning Nigeria today. Executive Secretary Nati, Dr. Oji, thank you for being our guest this morning.
Thank you very much.
We also would like to appreciate Faith Nwadishi, who is the Executive Director, Center for Transparency Advocacy, and a former board member of Global AITI. Faith, a delight having you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you so much, sir.
We also had Alwal Musa Rafsanjani, Executive Director, CISLAC. That's one of the notable civil society organizations in the country. Thank you for being our guest this morning. From Lagos, we were joined by Mr. Peter Egbule, who is a civil society representative on the National Stakeholders Working Group of NATI. We appreciate your time and your insight into our discussion this morning. All right, let's go back now to our sports desk.
Super Eagles striker Odonigal was on the score sheet as Al Hilal defeated table topper Al Ittihad 2-1 in the Saudi League on Tuesday. The Nigerian international, who was making his fourth appearance for Al Hilal, has scored 4 goals in the league this season. He was a constant threat in the attack for the host, and his effort eventually paid off as he netted the second goal for the host in the 68th minute. Igalo, who has been named for this month's 2022 World Cup playoff against Ghana by interim coach of the Super Eagles, Austin Iguavoin, was later substituted in the 90th minute.
You'll never walk alone echoes around this famous stadium.
Yusuf Medabus. And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. Take care of yourselves and have a nice day.
You get to see the way